Town Center Initiative Committee. I have to apologize in advance that, some of you know, I'm going to introduce myself first. My name is Dan Wolf. I have lived up the road on Main Street here for the last 33 or 34 years, where we've raised our 3 wonderful daughters, and am proudly a town resident of what I consider to be the best damn town on Cape Cod. For some of you might know, I also served 3 terms as your state senator from 2001 up until, 2011 up until 2017. And while I've run a lot of public hearings and meetings, I've never done it at a town level. And I'll tell you, this is much more intimidating. So bear with me as I navigate through. A little bit of order. This meeting will be video taped, so I am required to read you the following. As required by open meeting law, you are hereby notified that the town will be videoing and audio recording this meeting. Anyone in the audience who plans to video or audio this meeting should notify the chair prior to the start of the meeting. Then it says pause, and then it says hearing no one, call the meeting to order. So once again, we're to order. What I'd like to do from a process standpoint, first of all, as you may have gleaned, I like to run meetings fairly informally so that people feel comfortable to get up and speak and be who they are. So this is going to be rather informal, but we do have to rely on a certain protocol. So just a real brief update on what we're going to do. I want to thank Charlene Greenlaw and Ginny, what? Greenhout. And Ginny Hewitt for the incredible help in A, putting this meeting together, and B, being here tonight. So I thank you, town planner. And taking notes will be Ginny. Link and Greg are here with us tonight. We're going to do quick introductions. After the introductions, Charlene has agreed to present a PowerPoint. Charlene submitted to do a brief presentation on why we're here tonight, what we're going to discuss, and then we're going to open the meeting to public comment. That's really the reason we're here tonight. This committee has had a couple of meetings and decided at those meetings that the most important thing was to get out here and hear public input and comment on how people feel about what's going on in Harwich Center and what, if anything, can be done about it. There's a long history here, as Charlene will discuss, and that will be part of the context for tonight's discussion. Paul Doan, who was 3 state senators before me. God, that must make you feel old, Paul. Yeah, I know, you can't hear me. Yes.
I'm old.
But Paul was my predecessor 3 state senators ago, and asked me to serve, which I am gladly doing. Could we quickly introduce the other committee members who are here tonight?
Sure. I'm Ginny Hewitt. I'm a resident of Harwich Center and also a stakeholder in that I'm the library director at Brooks Free Library.
Thank you.
I'm Link Hooper. I'm your DPW director. Senator Doan asked me to participate in this committee, more or less as support to see if there was opportunities for grants and other things to help spruce up the infrastructure.
And I'm Greg Winston. I'm town of Harwich, born and raised 1951. Only one older than me is Paul. Sorry about that. Likes to remind me of that all the time. Winston Inn and Beach Resort, stakeholder in the village of Harwich Center and Harwich Port, and also a former chair of HDHC, Historic District Historic Commission, and I've been on that board since 1986.
So without further ado, everybody has signed in who wants to sign in, and just to show of hands, how many people are planning or hoping to speak tonight or are unsure of whether, depending on what we hear from the presentation? Okay. So, you know, normally you look at that and you get an idea of how much time each speaker is going to get. Unless anybody gets really kind of too wordy, we're going to sort of not have a tight and rigorous, here's your minutes, because sometimes people express quickly and sometimes they don't, and it doesn't look like an overwhelming number of people are going to speak tonight. So Charlene Greenhall, I'm sorry I screwed your name up the first time.
Everybody does.
But we'll start the meeting with humility and error from my perspective. And without further ado, why don't you go ahead and
Okay.
I will reintroduce myself, because I usually always do. I am Charlene Greenhalgh. Can you hear me? What? Wise guy always in the back of the room. I am your town planner. And without further ado, and of course, I'm losing my voice, and I had a cough drop, and I don't know where it went. Okay, so what is the Harwich Center Initiative Committee? As Dan mentioned, there have been a number of efforts over the last, believe it or not, 19 years, probably some even before that, that have been aimed at trying to figure out what can be done to help spruce up, improve economic development, what have you, the Harwich Center, through to make it a cohesive and attractive center. The Cecil Group wrote a plan back in 2000 called the Harwich Center Initiative Report. The Harwich Center Technical Study by the Cape Cod Commission was done in 2009 to help prioritize some of the action items that were developed in that 2000 report by the Cecil Group. And this last year, there was an ADA sidewalk project review done from the community center through Harwich Center all the way down to the cultural center. There are some other resources. These are just a few of the different ones that we do use throughout the town. One is the Historic District and Historical Commission guideline booklet notebook, so if you do need to go before them, you get a little idea of what they're going to want to see. There's also the Housing Production Plan that was completed in 2016. The Brooks Free Library Exterior Extension Assessment Report that was done back in 2015. And then just gathering all kinds of information that we possibly can through two previous Harwich Center committees that had been established. Town staff, interested stakeholders, because quite frankly, as the town planner, the committee's great, but it really is what you all see as your vision and what your desires are that we will try to bring to cohesion. Consultants and Cape Cod Commission have each attempted to develop a vision for the area. Each have also had extensive discussions, direction towards prioritization steps to implement the Harwich Center Village. Some of the vision goals have been to identify community needs, to envision what a revitalized Harwich Center can be, what it can look like, what it can offer, to review solutions other locales have applied to similar problems. This is not unique to us. It's happening all over, not just New England and Massachusetts, but all over the United States, to develop specific design actions and to explore possible implementation steps to realize the vision. What is it going to take to get us there? Is it going to take zoning changes? Is it going to take grant money to do some revitalization of infrastructure, all those kind of things?
Excuse me, are these documents online?
There is a PowerPoint presentation. We can definitely get this on the website for the Harwich Center Initiative. Good point. Someone write that
Yep,
down
I
so
will.
I'll remember to do that. So the Harwich Center Initiative Committee charge that was established by the Board of Selectmen. This is a group that was established by the Board of Selectmen, so it is a ad hoc committee. It has a limited duration and a specific goal that it needs to reach. So I'm going to read this. The town of Harwich wishes to create a plan that will stimulate the economic viability of Harwich Center and improve the area visually and functionally that results in a walkable, sustainable, vibrant, and cohesive village. Housing possibilities ranging from workforce to market rate housing will also be explored to help increase the variety of housing available in Harwich. Right now, there are a lot of moving parts that are going on besides the Harwich Center Initiative. We have the Cultural District designation that we're going for Harwich Center. Cindy Williams, who is here, who is the Executive Director of the Harwich Chamber of Commerce, the longest title on earth. She and I are not even sharing, we're the co-partners. Perfect.
Liaisons to the state.
Liaisons to the state and co-partnering to come up with the Cultural District designation for Harwich Center. There are traffic and safety studies that are going on by the Cape Cod Commission with the assistance and through the DPW director. There will be one-on-one meetings with potential stakeholders. Folks who may have, wow, we have a lot of people here and not a lot of chairs. if I might, grab a chair and sit up here if you want to be
Yeah,
comfortable.
absolutely. There's
Come
chairs
on
up here.
So, yes, some one-on-one meetings with potential stakeholders, obviously Chamber of Commerce engagement. And there's also something which a lot of people don't know about, which is the Village Center Overlay District, which is in the zoning bylaw, which what it allows somebody to do is if they have a project that they want to do, they get to think outside the box and are not locked in on zoning setbacks and different restrictions that are common with zoning. How will the committee carry out this work? First and foremost is public listening sessions and public engagement. It is critical that this committee, as well as myself as a town planner, hear from you to know what your visions, what your thoughts, what you're thinking of. Some of you may say, you know what, it's fine, don't touch it. Others may say, oh, what if we try and do, I'm trying to think of something off the top of my head and it's not working, but some kind of economic development and growth. One of the things that the cultural district is going to be definitely looking towards is other cultural aspects that can help the community. And part of that is also economic development. You need both. Well, you need all of it, but we're going to review recommendations from previous studies. We're going to provide forums for community members to offer their thoughts. We're going to assess viable and economic development, again, meeting one-on-one with potential stakeholders. We're going to analyze previous efforts. We will look at those past plans to see what we think might work, what we think might be a little too pie in the sky. We're going to coordinate with boards and committees and property owners and stakeholders to try and align and validate the recommendations that this committee will come up with. And we're going to develop recommendations for priority strategic action items. Public feedback sessions, again, this can't be done in a bubble. This cannot be done in a vacuum. So there need to be a number of reach out sessions with all of you. And I am truly, truly delighted and amazed to have this many people here. This is wonderful. And finally, the committee will be making a final report with recommendations to the Board of Selectmen. They have until, I believe it's December 31st of 19. I'm going to run through just very briefly a couple things that had come out. The Cecil group had looked at, and I wish this was a little clearer. It was hard to get this any bigger without it getting very distorted. But the Cecil group looked at a number of things. They looked at historic structures, where parking lots are, areas where they felt that sidewalks needed to be widened, and we do need to comply with the American with Disabilities Act, so we do need to make sure that we have the infrastructure that's going to be available for those who may have that need. Areas for where there may be new sidewalks, crosswalks, bike paths, path connections, traffic calming. I work here at Town Hall. I walk down and get my lunch every once in a while, and boy, nobody goes 25 miles an hour through here except maybe me, because not only as somebody who's concerned, but I'm also a town employee and I don't want to get a ticket. Looking at different landmarks, looking at areas that can be used for improvement, street tree improvement. Different areas where public parking and private parking could be expanded to create a better flow for the businesses that are here and the businesses that we hope to bring to this area. The Cape Cod Commission report also had recommendations for bike paths, parking areas, and sidewalks. There's also, and the pointer didn't work, so I'm actually going to run up and point to it and come back because I have to be on the microphone for you all to hear me. Right here.
Chart, can I help you point and you talk?
Nope, that
You sure?
right there is good, but thank you. So right there is actually a right-of-way that exists between the Main Street Market Building and the dentist's office, and goes back to the Aqua hot tub place. I know there's a name, I'm sorry, I can't remember what it is. Okay, there you go. There is a right-of-way right there.
Jim Treese.
There is a right-of-way right there. And somehow if we can look to incorporate that to either create another through, and I want to call throughway. Throughway is the wrong word I want to use, but to try and alleviate some of the traffic for the businesses that are in and around Harwich Center, perhaps expanding parking to make that a little bit better for folks. With traffic calming, unfortunately, you do usually lose some parking on the street. So, you know, to get that parking back is great. We have a great parking lot here. It's probably full tonight because all of you are here, but that's not the norm. So there are parking areas are in and around town. Here, if you see up there is that big squiggly line to the center, that is that area, potential circulation change. They had also looked at an area just west of the Brooks Academy and some, you know, various circulation changes. And these are really cool. These right here. This is what the street looked like, and this was done by the Cape Cod Commission probably back in '09. Hasn't changed a whole lot, to be honest with you. But this is what it looks like today, with creativity, with some zoning changes under the village center, village overlay district, and not saying this is what it's going to look like, but just to try to give you a vision of what is the potential. Here's something that it could potentially look like if this is the vision and direction that folks want to go. And with that, I'm going to shut up.
Thank you very much, and Charlene, again, yeah, Jenny?
I'd just like to mention one thing. All of those previous studies that Charlene referred to are on the Howard Center Initiative Committee page on the town website. And we also have a binder, we've consolidated them all in one binder at the reference desk at Brooks Free Library. So for those who don't want to go get it online, it's available in print.
And I also have them all too, so if you want to come and visit me, I'm absolutely happy to sit down with anybody and go over stuff.
Thank you. And I know Harold Gabriel is here. Harold, thank you for helping put this together. Paul Lag, did you come? Is Paul here?
I don't think he was able to come tonight.
Okay, so Paul also was really helpful in putting this together, so I want to thank them. But again, I want to thank Charlene as the town planner for really carpe diem on this. Just stating the obvious, there's some things in the public side that will need to happen if there are going to be changes. That includes, as Charlene said, zoning. It includes infrastructure. And it includes meetings like this where we actually come up with a collective vision for what we want to see. And then there are going to be components, if we want to make changes, on the private sector, which is we're going to have to include, involve, engage, entice people in the room and beyond this room to actually invest dollars in helping us get to this vision. So we do envision this as a public-private partnership where we are engaging both the town and the citizens, but also going to be engaging some of the private sector potential investors in this as well. Just so you know, that's a balance. And if you look at past reports, very often what happens in initiatives like this is we sort of believe if we build it, they will come by having the discussion and by creating opportunity. If nobody shows up, there are very often reasons for that. And I think part of our work here, if we come up with a vision that we all share, is how do we actually get and attract the components we need in order to implement the changes. Very often just making zoning changes isn't enough, and very often building infrastructure, whether it be wastewater or changes in traffic, et cetera, that also isn't enough. So part of our work as a committee is to identify, if we come up with a vision that's going to require public and private change, how to engage that. Paul Doan, who is on the phone, has given me a letter, which later on in the meeting I'm going to read what Paul has had to say, so don't worry, Paul, I haven't forgotten that. But until that point, I would invite anybody who would like to either respond to what Charlene has said as the town planner, or who has a vision or ideas or observations that they would like to share tonight with the committee. That would be really useful.
And are we jotting down as we go?
Yes, we have.
I got the board.
We have an easel and a board. We will be jotting down as we go. We're also recording this so that we will be able to refer back to it as we hear great input, which I know there will be here tonight. So again, could I just get a rough show of hands for how many people here are going to want to speak? All right, and I'm going to assume that that number will double or triple as,
I hope so.
as you hear what people say. So when you step up to the mic, don't be bashful. I think a lot of times when you get a crowded room like this, people who came with the intent of participating are intimidated by it. And the reason I screw people's names up at the beginning and really act the way I do is to try to put people at ease, because if I can sit here in front of you and do this, like I did in the State House for 6 years, you can get up and participate in the meeting. So anybody
And
want
I
to?
can't spell to save my life, so if I put something on there and you're going, what does that say? I'll know what it says. So-
She'll know, and you can feel free
Yeah.
to correct her as well. So if you could identify your name and where you live, if you're comfortable doing that, and then we'll go from there. Thank you, ma'am.
Hi.
Hi.
My name is Deborah First, and I live at 45 Whippoorwill, 124, off of Route 124. I haven't been a resident of Harwich.
You do need to speak a little bit more into
Yep.
the microphone,
There
sorry.
you go.
I haven't been a resident of Harwich very long, 3 years, but I've been told I'm in Harwich Center, so that's why I'm here. Looking at these maps, though, I'm getting confused because the gateways are all around this area where the stores are, the library, town hall, and stuff like that. So I go a little further out. Thank you for this opportunity, by the way. One of the first things I feel needs to be addressed is the access and safety to the area, and that's the center here. How do people arrive, and what facilities are available for them once they are there? Right now, getting to Main Street, Town Hall, Brooks Library, the restaurants, and this whole area from my home off of Route 124 is easier and safer by car, even though the center is in walkable distance. How can we make it more accessible by walking and bicycling, thereby cutting down on vehicle traffic and a need for a lot of parking? There are currently bike walking paths that run through town center going east and west. However, north-south, the access is limited. As I stated, I live off Route 124. The sidewalk from Main Street along Route 124 going north ends at Diana Street. After that, there is only a dirt path made by people walking on it through weeds on uneven ground up until the mobile station. That's where my street is. I consider it unsafe for me to walk on, even with my cane. Beyond that, I think you have to walk on the street or again on uneven ground to keep safe from the traffic. I have seen a lot of children walking to and from the tech school and high school along 124, which is not particularly safe for them as well. And I was told this afternoon by someone that because the tech school is becoming bigger and they're developing and everything, that there's possibly a law that they have to put sidewalks for a mile from the schools, which helps Harwich because we don't have to pay for it. But this is after I wrote this. This past year has been challenging for me due to health issues. I have been restricted in my driving at times, not able to drive at all. The only physical therapy the doctors would allow is walking, which I enjoy. However, since my street is a short dead end, I have nowhere to really walk without getting into a car and driving there first. The distance to places is not the issue, it's the access. As I get older, I would like to be able to depend less on my car and be able to walk places more. That is difficult where I live. Route 124 is a busy street. I would like to see a sidewalk along Route 124 from Town Center past Queen Anne, the community parking lot, and Route 6 all the way up to tech school. It would be safer for everyone, especially students going to the tech school and high school, and would allow a direct path to the center. The high school and community center would also be more accessible going to Harwoods. Adding sidewalks along 124 would not only be an avenue sending people straight to the town center, it would make it safer and easier for pedestrians and vehicles. And I also noted that in the Cape Cod Commission report, they are totally ignoring the north side of Main Street. They go up to, Old Colony Road, and that's it. So I'd like to go further. Thank you.
Great, thank you very much. Who's next?
I'll be next.
Thanks.
Good evening. My name's Matt Sutphin. I'm here with my wife Cynthia. We live up the road at the Lavender Farm. I confess I have very little depth in what's happened previous to tonight. Shame on me, but I'm glad to be here with the thought that was introduced to me by Paul before he headed to warmer climate. And I've worked on the thought, and I see it as ultimately the critical linchpin in having a successful, optimized Main Street. And that would be an extremely rectilinear parking lot between the church and the C4, the old post office in town. Rectilinear, being very thin, pencil-like almost, maybe a back south side curb, and then a middle section where cars come in on each other. And what that would do is, it would in effect be kind of like a back street, but it would allow some buildings on Main Street not to be gabled on the street. I realize it'll be interesting to create more gabled frontage, but I think there needs to be some kind of a trade-off to get space close to the street so that all the ambulatory stuff can take place between the parking lot and the backs of the buildings. Let's face it, most people aren't going to walk down the street. They're going to go from the parking lot. So there's a benefit to whomever's creating the structures to get more out of the footprint. I see that behind the buildings, I see kind of a basically a sidewalk, you know, embossed or whatever, but somehow some description of a sidewalk. So the expectation of those parking is that they be cautious with whomever is walking the full length of this pencil parking lot.
Would you mind on the map just showing us where?
Sure, I haven't looked at this map closely.
Okay, it's,
Well, the church property's down here.
yep.
So let's say going back behind.
He's got to use a microphone, otherwise nobody can hear.
The church property, all the way to the west, I would envision as the
Said
western.
what property? Whose property?
The church.
Church.
Well, it used to be the parking lot behind Reds, yes. That, I see that as kind of a dead end. Maybe you can come up into the church parking, I don't know. But the point is, if it's starting back there somewhere and coming all the way up past the easement and dead ending behind C4 net, the old post office, somewhere in there. That would, and then everybody would park their cars and walk, you know, along the backs of the building. And I'm, of course, assuming a lot. I noticed in Harwichport that the commons there, the three stakeholders, I believe, and maybe there were more, all got together and found a way to accommodate their needs for parking. So, assuming this rectilinear parking lot, I'm assuming it will be optimum to all of the parties involved.
Thanks, Jack.
So that they find a way to make it work. So that without that parking, controlled, focused parking, I just don't see much happening. You certainly can't park on the street. I noticed that some of the speed abatement planned, I would think would be problematic in terms of 10-wheelers. I can't see two 10-wheelers going by each other in a speed abatement indent, which is what I gathered from a previous picture. I just don't see that happening. So getting rid of parking on the street by encouraging it behind all the buildings will just, although admittedly it might make some people go faster, and that needs to be managed. Nonetheless, everybody would be closer to where they're going to spend their money rather than out on the front of the street going to building to building to building. So that's my thought. I think it's the critical component, and I think everything else would then follow. So, thank you for the time. Thanks, Matt.
Thank you very much, Matt. Thanks for Lavender Farm, too. It's a great, a great
My
place.
wife, she gets the credit.
Yes. We years and years ago, we always took our kids there on bicycles, and it's a great place.
Hello. My name is Roseanne Shapiro, and I've lived in Harwich for 8 years. I live in senior housing on Oak Street. And my concerns right now are about traffic patterns, things that compromise safety. First of all, the intersection of Oak Street and Route 39, there is one stop sign on the corner on the right-hand side, okay? In the summertime, you can't even make a right turn without waiting at least 10 minutes. A left turn is almost impossible. And even now in the off-season, it can back up, particularly around 3 o'clock or so in the afternoon with the school buses coming from Monomoy High School. So I think it's really detrimental to visitors to the town. They get frustrated and grumpy, and we don't want them to do that because we want them to return. There's also an intersection of Route 39 and the entrance into Sisson Road. It may be Sisson Road at that place. There's a two-way stop sign, but traffic can come from 3 ways. And I find that when I'm going along 39, left turning onto that street where I have the right of way, people who are at the stop sign don't know that I don't have a stop sign. Okay? And I have good reflexes. Some people don't. So that's a second thing. The third is, as I said, I live on Oak Street. Oak Street runs from Route 39 to Queen Anne Road. It is a double yellow all the way from one end to the other. It's curvy and it's hilly. And the speed limit is 30 miles an hour for good reason. I have been tailgated. Okay, I have actually had a few people pass me on a double yellow, which is very scary because you don't know what's around the corner or on the other side of the hill. The Harwich police are wonderful. They have had those signs up that tell you how fast you're going. I don't know what the solution is. I'm just concerned that there might be a really bad accident. And these kind of safety concerns, I think, really take away from the viability of the town as a cultural and economic gem. As a last thing, I just want to say that I am a member of the Harwich Cultural Council, so I have a very strong interest in developing the cultural district in Harwich Center. Thank you.
Great. Thank you very much, Roseanne. When we look at sort of the moving parts that are going on, as Charlene put that up there, the cultural designation is actually an important part of the discussion we're having. As is, I believe, is there anybody here from the commission, from the Cape Cod Commission? Because I believe the Cape Cod Commission is also looking yet again at a traffic safety study for this intersection, which there are a lot of ideas, but it's a hard intersection to manage given all the inputs and outputs into that intersection. Anybody from the, yeah, please.
I actually, the gentleman who lives at the corner of Oak and Main Street,
Yep.
he popped in. He was not able to be here this evening. He and his family live there, and he was very concerned about that intersection in particular. He said there's been a number of accidents there, so he did ask that I relay that to you and the committee.
Great, thank you very much. Greg?
Dan, one comment, just from the few people that have already had a conversation. I want to remind everyone else in the room, one of the things that I think is most unique about our village, not only the history, the Brooks Park and the Historical Museum, but we're the center, the municipal hub of our town, but we're also the municipal hub of 2 towns and all of Cape Cod when it comes to the Regional Technical High School and Monomoy Regional High School. And we have a traffic pattern coming and going in and out of this village that is much greater than most people have ever acknowledged. So every speaker that has spoken so far is very absolutely right on about this. This is a very serious consideration for 2 reasons, not just for the traffic pattern, but also the ability to ultimately bring economics back into this village because of the number of people that pass through our village for the reasons I've just mentioned.
Yeah, the good news, bad news is that I have been told that studies show that there is as much traffic that comes through Harwich Center as goes through Harwich Port. Is that,
It's actually more. So one of the studies, the Cape Cod Commission study from 2011 is called Plan for Bike and Pedestrian Safety in Harwich. So this data is from 2010. Main Street Harwich Center on a summer weekday, almost 14,000 vehicles passing through. Route 28 in Harwichport on a weekday, summer weekday, was 9,300. And so on a Saturday, Harwich Center stayed pretty much the same. On a Saturday, Harwichport had 16, almost 17,000. So their volume goes way up. Ours is pretty steady, but for most of the week, it's the busiest travel area.
which I guarantee there are people in the room here who see that as a challenge, but there are also people who see it as an opportunity, depending on how we manage this process. Yes, ma'am, please.
Hi, my name is Emily Mylan, and I'm a Harwich resident. I live on Queen Anne Road, so I'm not quite in the center, but I work in the center. I'm a staff member at Brooks Free Library. I'm the assistant director there, and I'm here representing the entire staff of the library. Our reference librarian, Jennifer Pickett, drafted a letter that the staff sent to the chief of police, the traffic safety committee, and Link at the highway department back in July, and I have a copy of that letter here, which I won't read word for word, but I will reiterate that a lot of what's been said already. We have some serious concerns about the intersection at Oak Street and 39, and particularly the crosswalks in that area. As Roseanne said, there's a lot of traffic in that area. In the summer, we have a lot of programming that fills up our parking lot, and then we overflow, both here at Town Hall and at Brooks Park. So we have a lot of families with young children crossing the street to attend our programs, not just in the summer, year-round. As a matter of fact, in December, over the holiday, we had Rainforest Reptiles on a Saturday. Sold out the program, maxed out at 100, and had to do a second showing for another 79 participants. So we had 179 people come to that program on December the 29th, I think was the date. So they were crossing the street even in the dead of winter. But what our concerns about that intersection that we witness mostly in the summer when we're using that crosswalk, because our staff parks across the street during the summer to allow more parking for patrons, is the way that it lines up. So the crosswalk doesn't line up with the corner. So if we're walking from Brooks Park and we come to the corner there to cross over the end of Oak Street and then use the other crosswalk to cross Main Street, it doesn't line up on the corner. So you're standing on the corner and traffic is zooming around making that right onto Oak Street, and they can't see you waiting to cross. As a matter of fact, I'm gonna admit this, and no one from the police department is here, right? I jaywalk and I cross at the entrance to the Brooks Park parking lot because I feel safer. And I know that I'm taking a risk by doing that, right? Because I'm not crossing in a crosswalk, so I could be at fault. Okay, thank you. I feel validated now. But not only that, but so we see that on a daily basis in the summer, waiting and waiting. No one stops for us. We've all almost been hit at least once. We drafted this letter in July, sent it on July 26th, and Link here, his response was almost immediate. He installed a temporary crosswalk sign. So it was a yellow sign about yay high that sat on the yellow line on the far side of the intersection, and we immediately saw a difference. Traffic started to slow down as they came into that area. So we're extremely grateful for that. But that's a temporary response. It's not a permanent sign. It can't be left through the winter because of plowing and other things. So we really are hoping that some permanent measures come out of the studies and the work that's done by this group. I also want to mention, and I've lost my train of thought, but I'll find it quickly. Our other concern is my office. My office is upstairs on the second floor in that beautiful local history room that overlooks that exact intersection. I have giant windows, and all year long, I hear squealing wheels. I pop up from my desk, and I see near misses almost constantly. I also hear the bus honking at cars who aren't stopping when the bus lets kids off, and those kids, the bus is headed into town, so the kids are having to cross the street, and there are cars that are not stopping for those buses. So some really serious concerns about traffic in and around the library and in the center. I'm like Charlene, I walk down to Ruggies to pick up a sandwich from time to time, and I think it's a beautiful it's a beautiful area of town. I really love it, and I can't wait to see what comes out of this. But I did want to express the staff of the library have some concerns about safety, and I'd be happy to share this letter that we wrote with you via email if you'd like to have that for your records as well.
That'd be great.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, Emily. Any comments from the committee?
Well, yeah, when the staff wrote that letter, it naturally was on the selectmen's agenda, and so there was a very nice article, front page on the Chronicle, safety concerns at Brooks Free Library. Employees at Brooks Free Library fear for their lives. That is, at least when they're crossing the streets around Harwich Center. So the very night, this comes out, you know, we get free delivery from the Chronicle of I don't know how many papers, 40 or 50 papers. Stop in and pick some up. On Wednesday, it comes out, you know, if you get it at home, it comes out on, you get it on Thursday. But anyway, the Board of Trustees was meeting the night this came out. When we came upstairs from the basement meeting room, you know, I'm gonna lock up the building, and we see the blue and red lights flashing out front. A car roll over right there at Oak Street and Main Street. So luckily no one was seriously hurt, but it's a real concern. And our concern is not just, you know, we're really careful because we know the danger, but not everybody does, and it's a concern.
Thanks, Vinnie. Paul?
Hi, thanks, Dan. I'm Paul Anastasio, and Dan, Greg, Link, and Jenny, and Charlene, thank you so much for sitting in those chairs, because without you, there wouldn't be a committee. And this, of course, as Greg knows, is it's Greg's second time. It's Greg's third time. It's my second time to be participating in the committee. We tried another time back about 10 years ago, I guess. So I'm a stakeholder in town. I own the property on the corner of Old Colony Road and Route 124, Pleasant Lake Avenue. It's Harwich Health Center. And it's when you're looking at it, it's in the top right corner of that big sort of open field along Old Colony Road. I don't see Bob Bradley here tonight, or the Moyles, and they own the properties that make up that big section in the middle, or rather on the top, that broad open area of fantastic commercial village overlay. Really, really prime real estate when you're talking about Harwich, that this type of stuff is so limited. Okay, highly desirable, I'm sure, for, you know, developers. Now, while sidewalks, traffic safety, you know, should be the top of the list. They really should be. And trying to manage the flow of traffic, getting people to park, get out of their cars, and enjoy the center is definitely key. And I think having the bike trail going through there is a prime opportunity to really could make that center, you know, more of even a biking destination, or where people can come, park, get out, and use their bikes along the bike trail, but also in and around the center, and feel safe and be able to do that. So I would love to see, you know, bike racks incorporated into the plan as well. People will feel comfortable bringing their bike up to an establishment and using the establishment off their bikes. My biggest concern, obviously, is having a developer coming in and then putting something in there that would change the quality and the nature of the center. We have the Historic Society that needs to be on board with this, and we need to have them in conversation so that they understand that we would like to keep in line with the historic nature of the village and of Cape Cod, but also allow for the development to happen when the people that are interested do come in. The cultural nature of the center and how that's evolving is wonderful. Is wonderful, and we could really make the center something special around that theme. If we create a destination for the center and we maintain the charm and historic nature, it'll be a huge draw. We'll beat out Chatham, hanging out at the end of the elbow there. You know, we have way more traffic and we really make it something just really beautiful. Personally, I wish I was a millionaire because, you know, I would buy it and hold on to it and wait till we all came to a decision on what to do and then build it out. And because then I would love, because I'd love to see it done right. I would just love to see it done right. It's just such a gem. It's such an uncut diamond. And I would just love to see it, as all of you, to be not, you know, marred. Thank you.
Thank you, Paul.
Thank you, Paul.
Comments from the committee?
I'd just like to say this. Paul worked with me on the first two initiatives, and Paul and I worked together as well with a number of groups in attempts to beautify and rectify some of the issues in the historic village. And Paul, as you heard from his speech, truly loves this village, and I concur with absolutely everything he had to say. And I thought he was going to become a member of this board. I think that's an intention, maybe?
Tom?
Dan, Paul may have given me an entree to offer my thoughts here. My name is Tom Evans. Janet and I bought our house on Great Western Road in 1973, have lived there full-time since 1976. Many, many years ago, I was on the Harwich Conservation Commission. I'm now chair of the board of the Harwich Conservation Trust, and I'm not speaking as a member of the trust. I'm speaking solely as an individual. A lot of you may remember, and this is, Paul, where you sort of triggered this memory for me. Harwich Port had a benefactor in the person of Richard Fennell many years ago, who came in and played a huge role in revitalizing the village of Harwich Port. I remember the days when the post office was still in Harwich Center, and it felt to a lot of residents of Harwich as though when the post office moved out to East Harwich, the heart of Harwich kind of went away. Our anchor tenants now, today, are really Town Hall, which closes typically late in the afternoon, and the library, which closes at 7. I mean, no disrespect to Ruggies, which is a great restaurant, or to the Tile Place, but it's, you know, those are kind of niche businesses that don't draw a lot of traffic to the town. Traffic has already been identified by many of you as a huge issue. I can identify with that because all of the South Dennis industrial traffic that rolls by my house headed east, I know is headed right straight to that stop sign in Harwich Center, and I know how many concrete trucks and 18-wheelers there are that are involved in the construction of any project on Cape Cod east of the industrial section of South Dennis. It all rolls through Harwich Center. And I think that volume has increased dramatically over the course of the last probably 20 years. And that's a wonderful intersection that worked probably 20 years ago, but it doesn't work very well given the zig and the zag at this point. And Paul, here's where, you know, it sort of takes me back to Richard Fennell. If we could figure out the zoning issues, the traffic issues, it would be wonderful if we could find somebody with $1 gazillion who would come in and say, I'll make the big package happen. What worries me is that for this revitalization to be a partnership with individual businesses, there are going to be very few business owners who are going to be willing to make the investment solo, to be the first one stepping up to the plate, not knowing how it's going to work out over the course of the next 10 or 15 years. And so it feels to me as though the town is really going to need to get its act together to figure out what it wants to do as the lead agent here in terms of traffic and in terms of zoning, so that individual investors in restaurants or storefronts of whatever kind know that they're not going to make an investment that will stall 3 or 4 or 5 years down the road because they weren't followed. And so, you know, I think it's wonderful that the committee is gathering this information and getting this input, but the committee may need to take that information and go away for a period of time and quietly have those many conversations with the town folks to figure out what the town wants to do, and also to have quiet initial conversations with potential businesses to find out what terms and conditions would make it possible for them to make that initial investment and to make it successfully. And I'm fundamentally a very optimistic person, but it feels to me as though this is a really big challenge to take this Harwich Center from what we know now to what we want it to be, because it's going to take getting a lot of ducks in a row to be able to, in essence, sort of pull the trigger and say, okay, we're ready to go, and everybody's on board, and including a number of investors who will probably be required to make it happen. I doubt we'll find another Richard Fennell. It would be wonderful if perhaps we could, but it's unlikely. So those are my thoughts.
Thank you, Tom. Thank you very much. Any comments from the committee?
One comment, significant comment, it's been repeated many times. The issue of the traffic, as you, as a resident of Great Western Road, did I hear? Yeah. Yes. A huge problem with the commercial vehicles going through town. Today, just today, a cement truck going 35 miles an hour or faster through the center of town. I was about to cross from Oak Street to go around the library to Bank Street, and a judgment, I decided not to do it, but wow, that's too, you know, that's definitely an issue. It's definitely a safety issue.
Mr. Chairman, Richard Waystack. And I've been attending these meetings, and as you know, I felt it was very important that you had stakeholders here tonight, those who live and work in Harwich Center. When we're talking about a vision for Harwich Center, it's important to start with the people who live there and work there. Mr. Evans makes a very, very good point, but Dr. Fennell's not coming back. And we look at economic development and trying to bring it back into Harwich Center. I think an important person is missing from this committee. I think Dr. Anastasio mentioned it. Someone from the Historic Commission should be sitting on the committee, because in order to bring business in, there's got to either be a profit motive or there's got to be some type of tax credit to have a business want to come into Harwich Center. If they're not going to make money, they're not going to do it. We've seen a litany of businesses come in and change over. Snow's left. You know, we have a couple new businesses there today. They're leaving because they can't make it. In order to get businesses to come into these different areas, without a profit motive, it's not going to work. And now you've had a business looking to get into Harwich Center, and there's been some difficulty in getting approval for historical to get that business situated. That sends a message to other businesses. If you don't want me here, or if the regulation is too stringent, then I'm not going to come. So I think it's so important that we have someone from the Historic Commission on this committee so that we can work at zoning changes, we can fix traffic, but the economic stimulus part of this is not going to happen unless we have workable regulations that a business or businesses can come in and have a profit. Absent of that, you're going to have to look at things like tax credits to encourage people to come in. You know, we want to see Harwich Center be not only the municipal center of town, but I'd love to see it come back to being the economic center of town as well. So there are a lot of things to think of, but I think it's very, very important for any of you who live and work in town to make your comments known, whatever they are, because this committee has got a very, very difficult task in front of them. And they've been given a very short period of time. They've been given 14 months to make a report back to the town. To get something done, we need to get people attending the meetings, speaking out, and having your opinions heard. So thank you for letting me speak tonight, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Richard. Any comments? Rick?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I hadn't planned to speak tonight. I received, excuse me, I'm losing my voice, which is probably good. I won't speak too long. I received notice because
I'll introduce you, Rick Cahoon.
Thank you.
I don't know your address.
Yeah. I received notice of this meeting tonight because I'm a stakeholder. My law office is on Old Colony Road, and I'm within the historic district. I was born and raised in Harwich, and know many of you, and I'm interested in Harwich Center. Graduated from Harwich High School. I won't tell you what year, but it was close to Paul Doan's.
There you go, Paul.
And
I'm
Paul
not sure
can-
who wants to win that
Really?
competition.
I came here tonight to listen and learn. I'm an attorney, and I have clients that want to purchase the old Getty Station property and move their business from the present Main Street Market next door into a new facility there. We've been before the Historic District Commission. We've tried to work with the neighbors and the commission. We've withdrawn the initial plan. People thought it was too big. People thought that it was not in keeping with the architecture of the village. We're hopefully coming back with something that's a little smaller. We're hopefully coming back with something that will be more in harmony with the buildings in the town. There'll be no increase in traffic because the structure, the business is already there. We're just moving it from one spot to the other. There's also a liquor store component in the Main Street Market. As you may know, if you ever go in there, the liquor store will increase a little and be a little enlarged in the present spot, but the convenience spot will be up on the road. We're trying to work with the neighbors. We're trying to work with the commission. We're going to be along the. There was a picture of it up there. It's going to be right in line with Ruggies and the tile store and Reds. It's going to be right on the road. It's going to be 60 feet on the road. We originally were, someone said a little massive. We've reduced it somewhat. We're closer. I think that I can talk to my clients about keeping the area behind open, so if it's ever able to develop into parking behind those businesses, we would be able to join in that. But I think that we're going to come forward with a new design. I think that'll be good, and I think there'll be no increase in traffic, and I think that it's economically viable. And I hope that if any of you have any questions, I don't want to take too much time, but certainly if any of you have any questions, I was going to say I was in the phone book, but nobody's in the phone book anymore.
What's a phone book?
Yeah, what's a phone book? You'll be able to reach me if you can. Thank you.
Hey, Rick, just real quick, the plan, does it include, what is going to happen to the existing market under that plan?
Well, the liquor store will expand a little. The liquor component, which is now 2 aisles or 3 aisles, will now be more of it. It will be a liquor store. The convenience part of it, the convenience store, will be moved up. So everybody that comes, there'll be no increase in traffic. I mean, as Greg points out, we've got the high schools and the community center and all these things, and they just overload the roads. And I think that there's a lot of things that can perhaps be done with the rerouting, someone that's on a school bus to go out the back way as opposed to coming down to Brooks Library and so forth. But I just think that my client's plan will help revitalize Harwich Center.
Thank you. Committee? Yep.
I just wanted to say, I wasn't aware, Mr. Cahoon, that you were the attorney for the proponents of this. They're my neighbors, and I want to say they're a hardworking family, a Harwich family. I live right on the corner of Chatham Road and Main Street, and they're one house in. The boys, I'll say the boys, one of them's the applicant. He's a young man, maybe 27, 28. Very hardworking family, and they are interested in Harwich Center and, and in the community. So I think that's great to have local business.
Thank you. I've worked with them for 8 years. They've bought Brewster Farms over in Brewster on 6A. It runs much better. It's much cleaner. They have interests in Chatham. Very hardworking, good citizens. Their kids went to Harwich High School and college and so forth. So it's people that are from here.
Thank you.
Hi, I'm Becky. I grew up in Harwich. I now own a home in Harwich. My parents live on Main Street next to you.
Yay.
And my brother actually bought a house around the corner from where I live. So we're invested. It's not my grandfather's Harwich Center anymore. I miss Toby's. I miss Bates. I remember Dunnington's, all that. And while I appreciate the businesses, I'd like us to not lose sight of the fact that there's actually neighborhoods. There's a lot of kids on Old Colony and Park Street and the neighborhoods behind us. It's not just about the businesses to us. I appreciate the tax base and all that good stuff. But we're really concerned about the traffic, most importantly. I see us as a gateway from the schools now, and my kids are about grown. But that's all I wanted to add. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Comments from the committee?
Good evening, everybody. I'm Jim Trees, co-owner of Cape Cod Aquatics, pools and hot tubs, the hot tub store. The destination location, you know, on parallel streets, so it's kind of, well, thank you all for everything that you're doing here. I'm a little trying to play catch up. I feel like I just got back into the country yesterday. I did get this notification just before I left. Herding cats comes to mind. You all have a very large job to do, I think, and I look at this and go and ask myself, the mission statement is, it needs to be, what do you want Harwich Center to be? It can't be, I mean, I'm hearing tax incentives for businesses to come in here. I don't think that's the answer. I mean, everyone's got opinions. I'm looking at this cut through going through my building, directing and redirecting traffic along Parallel Street. People live on Parallel Street. We don't, you know, and there are town employees and police officers that go 40, 50 miles an hour down that road. It is a large, difficult project. But I think, you know, I think the main reason you know, I'm a destination business, there's no question. People are not going to be rolling down the street, walking in, going, let's go buy a hot tub. I'm like Tile Works, I'm like these type of people. That's okay. But, you know, we're the gas station, and as some of you know in here, when we bought the building, moved in, it still leaves a bitter taste in my mouth what we went through as business owners moving into Harwich. And I hear the story from any business that wants to move into this center. It's a fight every time. And so I think there needs to be, you know, I'm interested in this form-based zoning, although do we need another, you know, we've got residential, commercial, historical zone districts. We got, you know, we're gonna lay another overlay over top of this and make it even more confusing to anybody, residents and so forth. It's a big project. I think it can be worked out. I love Harwich Center, I actually do, but do we need more business? Do we need another convenience? I don't really know the answer to that, but what I would like is to be informed as a stakeholder in property in this business as to what is going on, because I feel like I got blindsided again. When I moved in here, this business, it's the information, and I've heard from other people, oh, we take it directly off of the town tax records. Well, I don't have any problem getting my tax bill, but I sure am having a hard time finding out what's going on with these committees around here. So I would appreciate it if we can get an updated list that the business owners and residents that are involved in this area that we're talking about are informed, and they can make an educated decision on whether they even want to show up and have their input.
I apologize for that. We did try to identify and send to all of the property owners and the business owners. I apologize, Jim, if you didn't get it.
That's okay, that's okay. But that's really, I think it's a great thing that we're doing. It's been going on for quite a while, and there's a lot of information out there now, so I guess it's your job and everybody else's to kind of weed through it and go, really, what do we want to do with it? So thank you for your time. Appreciate
And by the way, the hot tub's working out great.
Everybody should get in a tub. We'd be able to.
Thank you. Greg. Yeah, sorry, Dan. Go ahead, Greg.
I just want to recognize two things that Jim said. First of all, I'm sorry, but you know that already. From the very beginning of time, Historic District, Jim's business actually got in under the lines of the Historic District because HDHC, back in those days, I was on the board but not chair, if the board can't get a quorum within so many, 45 days actually, the law is that the applicant gets the permission to go forward. Number one. Number two, Jim brought up something that's extremely important. My partner has 2 little dogs. He will not walk those dogs on Parallel Street between the stop sign on Bank Street and the stop sign on Sisson Road because the traffic is so fast. A Domino's truck almost killed me one night down there with the dogs. So that's an issue as we're looking
like to
forward
give
at
ideas
traffic
at
going in
last.
different directions.
Sorry.
The traffic on that section of parallel between Sisson Road and Bank Street, it's a cut across, and it's to be taken into consideration seriously.
Thank you.
Dan, I just wanted to ask Jim, how do you feel about that right-of-way access being used for more parking, or, because I understand there are different options. I mean, I just really found out that this even existed recently. You know, our committee hasn't met and formed any opinions, but I do understand there's different ways it could be done. It could be no outlet on Parallel Street, you know, it could be just parking along the side. So I'm just wondering, how do you feel about any option to do anything with it?
Well, first of all, I'd like to be involved in the process. What is going to be
He needs to be at a microphone.
Yeah, could you,
I'm
Jim,
sorry.
would you mind just being back at the mic? Thanks, Charlene.
Whatever's decided, I just want to be kind of involved. That cut through is owned by, you know, as I'm still quite sure, but it's owned by 4 people.
Right.
And it's a right of way. The town won't take care of it.
Yeah, it's in bad condition.
Excuse me?
It's in bad condition.
Oh, yeah, but the town won't take. People cut through, fly through. I had to park a trailer to park. People cut. Anyways, it's you know, it's not.
I don't know, but I'm thinking that part of what we would be looking at is, would the town, I don't know how they go about it, but would the town, I don't know, is it
a taking.
Is it taking, and
imminent
it would be maintained?
In Main Street. That is a viable option, and I'm willing to hear it. But I think you need to get all 4 owners,
Sure.
one of which is sitting here. So
Oh, yeah, that's what.
the
I think
whole
one of the-
Dr. Johnson needs
One of
to.
the things on the table is that discussion, and obviously, you want it to be a friendly taking, but if the 4 owners agreed that it would be better if it was in the hands of the town, and then the town would maintain it and
Absolutely.
keep it up. But I think, you know, that it would be a lot easier if the 4 owners agreed that. It would have to go to town meeting if that was gonna happen, but that is something that's worth discussing, I think, with the owners.
Sure.
Do you wanna talk?
I'm all for talking with the owners about it
Great,
and
excellent.
open to it.
We will
There's
sign
no
you up
question.
for that.
I want to thank you. Bring me back. You opened the door again for me to open my mouth. You know, I fear at certain points. I kind of fear I'm making improvements to the building. You know, I've heard that, you know, it's a brick building, and I even heard when we purchased it, that building never should have been built there. I didn't build it. I bought it. Okay. I grew up in Old Town Alexandria where bricks were nice. You know, I could paint it, I could make it look nice. I could do, you know, but I'm scared. I mean, if I have to go before a committee and ask for the most mundane permission to do certain things, I like that. Some other businesses will sit back and go, I'm not doing anything because I don't have the time and I don't want to hear no. Okay, that's it. But I'm more than happy to talk to the 3 other owners, and I think they're open to it. You know. Because it is deteriorating. I apologize to anybody that cuts through there. I understand, well, at one point the rocks were pulled in and it was kind of that was before we moved into it. So actually the right-of-way has been closed off, sort of streamlined. Well, anyways.
Do you see it used a lot? Is it used a lot? You know, I'm at work all day down the other side of the
People
street.
do a lot of cut through there. I really don't mind it too much, unless they're flying through, but there are potholes, there are issues like that. There are a lot of, what do you call them, nip bottles getting zipped out the window I'm not happy about, but that's a whole nother issue. You know, they come around the corner and.
Heard that, Paul.
Anyways, a lot of it is more concerning to me is the traffic of coming down Parallel Street, and Greg would agree with it. There are people that just fly down there. I mean, and they just, boom. The minute I say speed bump, people think, oh my God, you know, we can't do that. Well, something's got to be done because 40, 50 mile an hour. I mean, just like we were talking about on Main Street, it gets tight in there. Someone's gonna get hurt.
Yeah.
Someone's, you know, and hopefully something can be done before then. I really don't know. But sidewalks down Parallel. I saw there was a plan for that. I'm like, well, that's kind of nice. Never heard of it, never saw it. But you know, part of the commissions of putting a sidewalk down there would be great. Just don't put a 4-lane highway through my. without letting you know. Thank you.
Thank you, Jim.
Name is David Toby, and I've been here my entire life now. Harwich Center is big part of my life. At one time, I made up a list of all of the businesses that were in Harwich Center at one time, ranging from shoe stores to my own store. And my own store is now on that list of businesses that are no longer there. So it makes me actually think that maybe the town is not suitable for businesses. Maybe it should be more concentrating on what is here and established. Maybe we should go to doctors' offices, attorneys, real estate offices, businesses that don't require the in and out parking as much as the businesses that I think we're talking about. Just an idea. The bike trail is important to Howard Center, and anything that's done should be incorporated with that bike trail. For example, Exchange Park, which is not really, it's there, we don't have time to view it because we're all whizzing by it, but maybe the back part of that Exchange Park could be made into an area where bikers could leave their bikes and walk around the town, instead of having bike racks all over the town. Brett Road is the road we've been talking about between the village store and what used to be the old post office. I think maybe the street sign has been lost. But that, I believe, is a private way, and it hasn't just recently been talked about. But I think there's an element of interest there because the road could be improved with parking on either side. Parking is an issue. For the businesses that are there now, the restaurants, and others, parking is a real issue. At the same time I say that, I think it would be advisable to eliminate parking on the north side of this main street to give the street more width and to make the corner easier to take going up north. You are not going to get less traffic going through town. It's just there. The highway department gentleman that's here knows of the difficulty in that area of the town. In fact, the whole Howard Center, and it would require an immense amount of money to straighten it out. You just can't do it. So you've got to find ways to control it the best you can. Sidewalks are important. It's really disastrous when you think of the sidewalk that runs from what used to be the old post office up towards Ruggies. It's just a disaster. And areas around, for example, Old Colony Road, there's vacant lots on there. And I believe those areas are residential, but maybe they could be enticed becoming more in the situation of apartments or something of that effect. Might be an enticement to get people living in the area of the town to make those little small businesses that are there more practical and profitable. I mention these things because of my time in the village. I've enjoyed it, and I will continue to be here. I wish the sidewalk down Bank Street were improved, but I'm not sure that can be included into the Harwich Village situation. And thank you for your time.
Thank you, David, very much.
David.
Any comments from the group?
Just one comment. What David just referred to is, I think, important. I think it's extremely important, primarily because we're talking about sidewalks, not only sidewalks from the technical high school, but also sidewalks from Monomoy Regional High School. But what David just brought up, extremely important. David and his wife walked their dogs as well for years up and down, and we have a serious sidewalk breakdown halfway down Bank Street on the right-hand side, where there's a culvert where water is supposed to flow more freely between I can get involved with Amy and conservation. I know what I'm talking about. It's hard to explain to you all. But because of that culvert, the road narrows there, and the sidewalk stops, and there's no place. And this is very important because in the summertime, as a hotelier, and having a property in Harwich Port and a property in Harwich Center, I'm encouraging, and one of the most important things that we have going for us is the proximity of our Cape Cod Rail Trail, bike trail, to the village of Harwich Center that could be connected to the village of Harwich Port had we the right sidewalks to get from one village to the next. That's very important. That's a good point.
Yeah, as somebody,
I will double down on that.
I appreciate nobody here having run me over, but I ride my bike like every morning between 6 and 6:30 down the bike path, and then I come through the center of town. And the stretch between the bike path, there's no cars usually when I ride, but the stretch between the bike path and the intersection is ridiculous. I mean, it's almost impassable, even for somebody who likes to ride bikes a lot. So that's clearly a friction point. Ma'am.
Hi, I'm Julie Kimball. I own the Ruggies building. This is my first notification of these meetings, so I'm late on arrival. The plans are terrific. I mean, it's a great idea. Whether I would give up my parking lot is another, I really would have to think about that. And I have a business there, and Ruggies uses that parking lot, and I have grease trap and septic, and so that I would definitely have to think about whether I would approve that. But my next question is, and it's a great, I think all your ideas are terrific, but I don't hear a lot about financing. I wonder if you could clarify that. I'm hearing a lot about the business owners and the building owners, but there's not a lot of business owners in the area. So if you could clarify where this financing is coming from a project this size. It's a big project. I was just wondering how it's being financed.
I think, at this point, what we're talking about is the infrastructure and the part that the public is responsible for, which we are talking about when we're talking about the traffic, and we're talking about sidewalks, and we're talking about potentially there's going to be wastewater issues that we have to address. That's the public sector. As far as financing what a private business would want to do, part of the whole balance of understanding what's going on is to understand what would be attractive for a business. I mean, Jim had some interesting points. Everybody has ideas about what would make it. Is it smoothing some of the regulatory process? Is it changing zoning? Is it creating infrastructure? So the question is, I mean, this is part of the whole dialogue. There is no answer to that. But as far as providing funding or financing for a business or a prospective builder, that is not going to be the role of the town or this committee. And the only thing I would say to you about the parking is just think of how many of your customers could park down there if there was more parking back there. So, and I'm not arguing for it. I'm just saying that, there is an argument to be made that, I sort of jotted a note here. There's two issues with the traffic. One is there an ability to stop even if you wanted to? And it is really hard. And then the next question is, what's the reason to stop? And one of the things this committee is looking at are both of those. It's really hard to stop because of the lack of parking and because of the way traffic flows through there. But then the question is, other than Ruggies and the tile store and the new store that's across the street where Bates's was, the question is, do we have critical mass and have we created a village where enough people are going to want to stop? And I think those are the... Right. We're looking at all of that, so I appreciate that. Yep. I appreciate that. Anybody else?
I just have one point regarding the idea, if it even would happen, and the connectivity of parking behind the buildings. A great example of that actually happened in Chatham. I know you guys don't like to hear about Chatham, but they actually worked together behind the Chatham Squire, Yellow Umbrella Bookstore, all along there. That was a public-private partnership to create the parking that's back there. And there was some private funds involved in that, and then there were town funds involved in that. So there can be a public-private development, and it ended up helping all of those businesses down there because you could now get from one place to another without having to pull out of a parking lot, go around the corner, pull into somebody else's parking lot. So it allowed for the connectivity. So that's just one idea.
So I think a dialogue, this committee could facilitate a dialogue between you and the other owners there. Also, you'd want to talk to the owners of the houses on Parallel Street because it's behind
Absolutely.
Where they are too. So there's got to be a real...
We'd be part of the financing, so
No, I think we're talking about public parking, and I think that the people who own the land would have to participate in that discussion to see how available they would be to participate in that. But I don't think we're talking about you actually paying to fix up the parking. I think what we're talking about is if there was a willingness with the property owners to do it, maybe there's an opportunity for the town to participate in that. Sir?
Tim O'Brien, I live 102 Parallel Street. You got my backyard circled right there. Yeah, this is the second time I've come to the meetings. I was part of the, not original, but the next round of meetings. And I am not, I've heard vocal, like, opposition to doing the parking back there in the past. I'm not necessarily one of those people that's opposed to it. It's just I don't want to see something get built in hopes of they're going to come.
Yep.
So then I have more cement, more nips, more shit, excuse me, in my backyard. And a big, more concrete in Harwich Center, but then still it's just Main Street Market, the place that, well, the whatever the new place is that's there that was Bates and then Snow's. I would love to see, I'm a business owner, I own Bluefish Bed and Breakfast. I would love to see more business in Harwich Center. It's such a toss-up because it's a good point of there's a lot more residential stuff going on in Harwich Center. Again, if you're gonna build this big parking lot, and I realize I hear the pencil thin thing, I'm open to all the options, but we don't need something built there through the back of people's yards if all it's gonna be is a place for people to hide and throw more nips, and there's no business for those people to come to. There's no way to see where you're supposed to park there anyway. There is a ton of parking around in Harwich, but there's nowhere to go. I mean, the sidewalk on Parallel, again, I own a property on Parallel. I'd be up for talking about it, but is there enough, is it worth it? Is it worth it? I also own part of the easement that we're talking about right there. It's in terrible shape. As he said, all it is right now is a garbage dump. And I have put my own garbage can out there and emptied it weekly till someone stole my garbage can.
So Tim, your
yeah.
feelings about the town taking that and actually making it more of a real throughway there? What's your feeling?
Well, I mean, I didn't really understand what you guys were talking about. It is a real throughway, trust me, people use it all the time.
But the town's
So
not
if they were to
responsible for...
close it off, that would be one thing. I don't know what the police and fire and people would think about that because it's been there for so long. I don't know.
Yeah.
If it were maintained by the town and really maintained, in other words, someone picked it up besides me when I'm weed eating back there, then I would definitely entertain it. Right now it's in terrible shape. As he said, there's a pothole that I've filled with Quickcrete myself before, and every year it gets plowed away, and it gets deeper and deeper and
I actually
deeper.
thought it was an advertisement for the hot tub.
Put some jets in there. You see all right? There used to be a tree on the corner that I used to have the trash can tied to. The tree's gone too. The stop sign doesn't really say stop anymore. It's pretty bad.
Okay, so I think one of the outputs of this committee will be to take a look at that, because that is something that we have already discussed. So we will reach out and engage you guys in that discussion.
But yeah, I would be up to talk about it, but again, I would, any of these things, I'm not absolutely no, but we don't need more cement unless someone's really gonna park there. That's my point.
Yeah, I think there needs to be if there's going to be a commitment on the public side, there needs to be some way of getting a commitment that's commensurate on the private side. And
it's the vision, it looks great, it really does. And
Thank you.
one point there was people talking about the power lines, I always heard that. I think that's a great idea, but again, that was always a great idea. Someday in the future you could actually do that, but then it was gonna cost, again, financing.
Yep. Well, I won't get into that because I'm biting my tongue, because that's something I always advocated for. I think we should be burying a lot of power lines on Cape Cod.
In response.
Yeah, in response. Anybody else? We're getting close to the witching hour. Yes, ma'am.
I'll be very quick.
I'm Nicole Muller. I live in East Harwich. The reason that I was interested in all of the comments that have been made before me and wanted to listen to make sure that what I had to say
Could you just turn that microphone a little closer to you?
might be
Thank you, thank you.
appropriate is that I see something that has been missing for a long time in Harwich Center, and it wouldn't necessarily bring more people specifically for this particular attraction, so to speak, but it would serve people who are already in the center for the library, for town hall, for the community center, people who may bump into a friend that they haven't seen in a while and want to go get a cup of coffee, some type of a cafe. I worked as a newspaper reporter and covered the rezoning of Dennisport back when that happened, and I also covered Buc-ee's Biscotti moving into Dennisport. Dennisport does not attract people to their library, to their community center, to their town hall. People went to Dennisport because of that business. I understand there used to be a very tiny one in Harwich Port, and it has left. But all those years ago, when Buc-ee's moved into Dennisport, the woman who owns it told me that after she got established in Dennis, she wanted to establish a similar business in Harwich. I'm not saying that it would have to be that, but I would propose a bakery slash coffee shop or an ice cream bakery coffee shop type of business where people who are already parked at the library or already parked at town hall, once you get the safety issues ironed out, would be able to walk from where they're already parked doing business at town hall or the library or even the community center. It's a nice walk on a sunny day into the center of town. So, I mean, that's something I have run into people that I know that I haven't seen in a few years since I've retired in the community center or town hall or the library, and I can't say, let's go get a cup of coffee, let's go, sit down and chat and catch up, because there isn't any such place. So that's my proposal. I certainly agree with all of the safety issues definitely need to be addressed. Sorry.
Thank you, Nicole. Thank you very much. Anybody else with a burning issue? Sir? All right. A lukewarm issue.
Smoke might be a little smoky, but Craig Chadwick, I'm a resident of Weston Woods Road, and I think I probably got a two-parter. One, it sounds like the initial go-round has elicited a number of concerns about parking and traffic. So I'm assuming you've got a short window to report to the selectmen of 12 months or 14 months. That might be something, the first thing that could be tackled. And I guess I would look to link on this. Repainting or realigning crosswalks, is that within your purview? Is that a state thing? Is that something that could be accomplished before summer gets here?
We do them every single year, fail none. Everything Howard Port, Howard Center, and out and about.
And is there any study performed, or do you go by guidelines issued by the state?
What I'm talking about is we refresh everything we have yearly. To realign, you need to follow MUTCD code, and you usually need an engineer. The town just adopted, or the Board of Selectmen just adopted a crosswalk policy for requests of new crosswalks that lines out the process to go through. So that was a helpful thing. Very rarely do we get them, but we do get them. And everyone thinks we want a crosswalk here. Well, you have standards to meet. You have sightlines distances to meet. You can't dump a crosswalk into a parking lot. It has to come to another piece of sidewalk. So everything in the public sector is far more complicated than anybody thinks and far more expensive than anybody thinks.
I figured that's why I asked the question, how involved it would be. The reason, specifically, I come out south on 124, and obviously turning left on Main Street is an issue for everyone. But and there is a crosswalk set back a little ways from the intersection proper. Not everybody uses it. A lot of people don't use it, and it's hard to see around those cars that are parked on the north side of the street. I wondered if there could take a look at the placement of that sidewalk. Does it make more sense to put it closer to the intersection or maybe farther away? Just something maybe that could be looked at.
Talking about the intersection right over here?
Yeah.
Yeah, we've looked at that. We've had the Cape Cod Commission look at it actually several times. And it's a very complicated and complex issue. And it's going to take some engineering and probably some property takings, which is probably why nothing has transpired, to actually fix that intersection. There's a lot going on there. You know, where we've been able to make improvements in town, we have. That is going to be complicated. It's going to take some abutter buy-in and a lot of money to fix.
A lot of money and a lot of buy-in. I'll throw into the mix, has there been any discussion about realignment of the intersection itself?
Again, engineering, money.
And is that a state thing?
No, that's all town.
That's all
Because
town.
a road has a state number on it, does not make it state.
Okay.
The only state-owned roads in Harwich, Route 6 and Route 28.
Okay.
Everything else the town of Harwich owns.
So when,
Is the Cape Cod Commission doing a traffic study? Because I hear conflicting.
Yes. Senator, the town administrator had asked the commission to look into the intersections up in Howard Center. We started with this one at Sisson in Maine. And then he said, well, let's look at Oak. And then he said, basically all the intersections up there, let's look at. It is on the commission's agenda to start this spring sometime.
So that's going to be, there's going to be a lot of good information when the commission looks at it.
and the commission would come to you, or you would have input to the commission?
We will certainly have a dialogue with the commission.
Usually when they undertake studies like this, they did something, intersection safety study or an audit out at Pleasant Bay Road and Route 39. We had a fatality out there years ago, a guy that actually was involved, used to plow for us. They brought a whole bunch of resources to the table. Now, this took some time, but they brought Mass DOT there, they brought engineers there, we had multiple site visits, the Traffic Safety Committee, myself was involved, and out of that became a list of options, which is how they would probably present this, is a list of options. And what I chose to do as a DPW director was everything shy of building a roundabout out there. That was easy. I had to work with the abutters and do some mitigation. We really opened up the sight lines, and you know what? We've had nothing but 3 or 4 very minor accidents out there, nothing major since. So I suspect when the commission does this sort of thing, it's a big project, they will bring some resources to the table. They generally get input from Mass DOT for their assistance, because they're the experts in the field. The commission does have a couple traffic engineers, the guy that runs, Steve Tupper, who did our intersection audit before. He's absolutely phenomenal and awesome, and it will take some time, but I think we'll have some options.
So as part of the, thank you, Link, as part of the vision that you're trying to come up with, or that anyone possibly could submit to you, everything is game. Realignment of the intersection, taking of property, et cetera, et cetera. Doesn't mean it'll happen, but it could be part of the vision, correct?
Absolutely.
Okay.
And I will say too, as we look at getting more input from the public, and as we look at things like zoning and infrastructure and some of the other responsibility that the town has, we are going to be engaging in conversations with proven, successful developers, business people, potential investors, not to try to get them here, but at least to ask them if they were to look at putting something here, what they would expect the landscape to look like, literally and figuratively. So I think that is a part of what our charge is. Absolutely.
Good. And the last thing, I just wanted to second what Matt had said. Even though we're neighbors, we didn't collude on this, but I also had the vision of maybe using, I think, what did you call it, a rectangular sort of parking area. But my thought was, as well as a parking area back there, maybe you could put, and again, it would involve zoning and all kinds of things, but little shops along on the back side of the buildings that currently front on Main Street, little shops all along the side of a parking area that would go maybe the length of from there to the cut-through street, or whatever it's called.
Or beyond.
Yeah, one of the things
Or
we
beyond.
certainly, I mean, you said collusion, I actually call it collaboration. One of the,
Better choice of words.
One of the things I think that would be really useful is for the property owners to all be talking to each other, like that throughway and stuff. Because if you could come with some kind of collaborative consensus on, yeah, this would be great for us and we'd like to support it, that makes our job a lot easier. So to the degree that you all can keep talking to each other and agree or disagree and interact with us, it's really helpful. So, you all know each other, and let's do that. And Greg, I know you're a
Well,
butter to this.
there's just one more thing that I have to put in the mix. I think it's important to get it out there. It's very important if you're going to be, if we're going to be speaking about this. Charlene referred to it, and I think it's the most important thing that we have well, not the most important, maybe the traffic, but this public-private cooperative for the parking that we're discussing, possibly. It's possible, we don't know, but the First Congregational Church may be interested in selling Broadbrooks building, so that this space that we're discussing could possibly go beyond, even beyond Brett Way. But here's another idea that I think we really need to consider. The lady just a minute ago that was discussing the coffee shop. Any one of us that owns a B&B or an Airbnb or a VRBO or anything like that are bringing people into our little town. There's no one in this room that will disagree with me about the beauty of this town. Just look at that poster, that painting right there behind you. I mean, that is what it's all about. Here it is, septic. Underneath that parking, that public parking that's going to be hopefully a situation that could be a private-public effort, we could put septic. We're not going to have municipal septic in this village in my lifetime. Never. And we can't have fine dining. We can't have a cafe. We have to have plastic spoons and plastic forks. So underneath this parking, with these quaint little shops maybe on the parking, we would have a municipal, quasi-public septic system that people could tie into. Would be absolutely harmless, and it would allow for businesses that today can't exist in the village to move forward.
So that's under the heading of infrastructure, and that's certainly part of this, is to see who's interested and then what kind of upgrades to some of the infrastructure we would need.
A lot of things to go into the vision.
Sure are. Thank you,
Thank you,
Craig.
Mr. Chair.
Thank you. Anybody else? What I'd like to do real quickly is read my predecessor, both as chair of this committee and chair in the State Senate. He submitted a letter which I'd like to read. Paul, I think if you're still on, are you?
I'm here.
I was halfway hoping that you weren't, but I'm gonna read your letter. You ready? Real quick.
I just want to say I'm even more energized by all the positive comment and vibration. So I think this has been extremely valuable.
This has been incredible, and I will say that 3 hands went up when I said who wanted to talk a couple hours ago. And just by my count, we've had 18 people, and I think that's remarkable input. So here's Paul's committee. Here's Paul's letter to the committee. My wife and I have owned our home on Main Street for 35 years. We raised our family there and hope to remain as residents as long as physically able. I grew up on Oak Street and worked as a kid in the Harwich Center in the late 1950s. Through the years, I have had the privilege of serving Harwich as an elected town and state official, as well as numerous town boards and volunteer committees. I was educated in law and land use permitting. Please don't hold that against me. That was my editorial comment. Sorry, Paul. However, it is my lifelong residency. I feel it gives me the real credential to offer a comment in support of this effort to revitalize Harwich Center in order to reverse what I have witnessed as the gradual eroding of a formerly vital town center. We need the infusion of meaningful investment dollars, ideally through a combination from public and private sources. However, locating sources and then securing that vital financing is a topic for another day. Tonight, I am urging this committee to consider putting in place some fundamental elements that would help build an infrastructure to reestablish the feeling of a vibrant, attractive, livable community able to benefit existing as well as entice the arrival of new economic activity. As stated in the movie Field of Dreams, build it and they will come. I think it said, if you build it, they will come. I implore you to start with the small, focused, implementable steps, and larger ones that really make things happen will inevitably result. Small successes build more successes. I offer some implementable actions which should help create an environment for a vibrant, growing town center. 1, by controlling the pace and flow of traffic daily rumbling through the center, and 2, by providing business supportive infrastructure, initially with improved additional on and off street parking while concomitantly, that's a big lawyer word. You got to tone it down if you want me to read these. Also achieving safe pedestrian and bike friendly travel. Longer term is the need to locate areas for self-contained mini facilities for treating the wastewater of current and future village businesses. What's validating is everything I'm reading here is a good summary of actually what we discussed tonight. What are the specific short-term implementable action items? 1, pace of traffic. Both the prior Cecil report and the Cape Cod Commission study suggested that slowing the pace of traffic will immediately reduce the negative impact of noise pollution, increase the safety of pedestrian and bicycle traffic. A quieter, safer setting would prove an economic stimulus to growth. Locating a stop sign on Main Street at 124 that would halt westbound traffic and incorporating a right turn lane were both recommended in earlier studies. It's time to try it. This will not only slow westerly traffic flow in the center, it will cause easterly bound traffic on Main Street to also proceed with greater caution. Lowering the speed limit into the center is also needed. 2, I'm just about done. Parking on both sides of Main Street. Again, prior studies, not to mention common sense, indicates that traffic slows when parking exists on both sides of the street. We should reline Main Street so as to reestablish the parking spaces on both sides, extending easterly on Main Street to the area of the Albro House property as previously existed. 3, and this is the final recommendation, acquire existing private way, and this is to the discussion we were having, town meeting by action, by gift, by easement, by eminent domain, prescription, etc., should acquire public ownership of the new poorly maintained private way between Main and parallel streets. This would not only result in allowing the town to improve the current road surface, but also secure potential public access ways to possible off-street parking proximate to the existing center businesses and help in the effort to attract new services and enterprises within a revitalized town center. And again, we wouldn't all be sitting here today if it wasn't for Paul's effort to bring us all together. So Paul, I thank you for submitting this in writing, and I thank you for inviting us to undertake this process. I will tell you what the committee intends to do next is we will have a follow-up, and Charlene, thank you for the exhaustive notes you've taken, and I've been taking some as well. We're going to have a follow-up meeting as a committee. We will do the public posting of that. Whether or not it's broadcast, I don't know what protocol is because I'm a little new to this in the town. But to the degree that it can be taped and broadcast, it will. We will have a discussion about what went on here today and possible next steps and how we would do those next steps. So that will be the follow-up. Yes, sir.
Will you maintain an electronic notification list?
We will, and by the way, if you were not notified, I again apologize if somebody wasn't who is a stakeholder and should have been. Would you please let us know so that we get you on the list?
Yeah, let me know.
Charlene know, and my email address, because I love getting random emails, I'm dan.wolf@capeair.com. Easy one to remember. So you can copy me, you can send it to me, or I'll forward it to Charlene, or you can send it to her and she'll forward it to me. But plenty of communication, plenty of transparency and engagement. I want to thank the committee members who are here tonight and who have dedicated and devoted their time to it. I want to thank the Board of Selectmen who are here tonight, and I especially want to thank everybody who took the time to come out here tonight. That's huge that you're here. This is really a pleasant surprise. With that, I will entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
A second? All in favor?
Go ahead, second. Yes.